Hey guys, welcome back to Ollie's Zoo. In today's episode we're going to be looking at live foods that you feed to your lizards and amphibians, in particular crickets and locusts, morio worms, waxworms, which are the live foods that we keep here at Ollie's Zoo. And the second half of the video we're going to be looking at bearded dragon nutrition, which will obviously tie in quite well looking at the live foods. What you see in front of you here are two faunariums, which are just plastic tanks, plastic tubs, in which we keep our two main live foods here at Ollie's Zoo. The first one we've got our locusts. As you can see, it's nothing fancy. They've just got some egg carton tubes to climb on. That substrate is just like a soil, and then those blue jelly type looking substances there, they're just hydration balls, but I'll come on to what they're used for in a minute. And then in here we've got our lovely loud noisy friends, the black crickets, which have caused me many sleepless nights as they happily tweet away and sing to each other, but you know, they keep your lizards going for a few weeks, so it's all good I suppose. And then in here we've got our worms, and there we've got morio worms, which are nice big fat juicy grubs. I'm sure any UK viewers will recognise those beasties from I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. And then here we have got slightly smaller version of them. There they are. They're wax worms, that's what I feed to the fire-bellied toads. Nice big fat juicy grubs full of fat and carbohydrates. They're a good stable diet for the amphibians, but for the bearded dragons I give them as a treat every so often. They're a bit like sweets really. So yeah, there we go. Now the morio worms, I don't know if you can tell from there, I'll zoom in. They actually have fine little teeth on those mouths of theirs, and they can give quite a nasty little bite when they want to. Which is why it's always important to crush their heads when you feed these to bearded dragons, because there have been horrible cases of these guys chewing their way out of bearded dragon bellies because their heads haven't been crushed and they've been fed in excess to bearded dragons. I'd feed these guys to bearded dragons, give them about 8 a week, something like that, you know, like 4 one day and then 4 another day, that type of thing. What's good about worms is that they have long digestive tracts. So you gut load them, which is where you feed them, so like bits of veg and fruit, that type of thing, and then your dragon absorbs what they've eaten, so it's absorbing their surplus energy, and it ultimately makes the prey item more nutritional as well, because it has extra food inside of it. But worms are really good because they have long digestive tracts, long guts, so they can eat more food that you provide for them, ultimately ensuring that your bearded dragon gets a better gut load. So yeah, morio worms, they're pretty cool. Now then, black crickets, those noisy buggers I was telling you about before. You can kind of hear them chirping away now actually. That's the males that. They'll tweak their little wings and it makes this vibration noise that to us sounds like a whistle. And it's like they're showing off to the females, saying that they're ready to mate. These guys have a lot of protein and carbohydrates in them. And again, I won't feed these to lizards all the time. In the case of bearded dragons, they should have sort of about at most 10, 11 of these a week, I'd say. A lot of people make the mistake of just buying tubs of these and then just feeding them to the dragon at once. That will quite quickly put weight onto your bearded dragon if you're not careful, especially when they're growing. And when they're older as well and their metabolism slows down. There you are, you can see one of them there flapping their wings, which is pretty cool. But yeah, if you're going to feed these to your dragon as well, you might want to coat them in a calcium supplement as well, so your dragon can absorb that calcium. So yeah, moving over to locusts. These guys have a good potassium value to them, which is good for the calcium absorption process, speeding that up. Those little blue balls that I showed you before, they're just hydration balls. With gut loading, you can feed them bits of veg and fruit and stuff like that. I've found that it's mainly fruit and veg that have a lot of water content in them that work better. I once gave peppers to locusts and it killed them all within a day. So for hydration's sake, them little water balls there, they work perfectly. And these locusts in particular, these are a 4th locust, and that's the thing about locusts, is that they're parasites. They have a life cycle, and they're in their 4th life cycle right now, so they'll get to 5th size, and then they'll get to adult, and then they'll die because their life cycle has been complete. Again, that's another thing that's not very well understood about live foods, is that they don't have the longest of shelf lives. So I'd recommend buying them at a younger age, and then you can rear them a little bit yourself. So yeah, and again with the locusts, don't feed them that often to your dragon, you know, 10, 11 a week, that type of thing. So yeah, that's awesome, guys. Welcome to part 2 of the video, in which I'm going to talk a little bit about bearded dragon nutrition. This is something that I have quite a passion for, to be honest with you, having worked at great depths with bearded dragons these last few years, in a professional capacity and a personal capacity. I think it's one of those things that's not very well understood or highlighted really to casual pet owners who are keeping our lovely reptilian friends, the bearded dragons. I think the problem with, you know, wrong diets for bearded dragons being fed is the fact that because they have such a human-like personality, we tend to sort of manifest that onto bearded dragons. This is called anthropomorphism, which is where you're labelling human emotions onto animals. And an animal like a reptile, even though I have said that bearded dragons, they do sort of exhibit intelligence to an extent, they don't think like we do. You know, they're very instinctive animals. They live, they look for food, they poo, they mate, they sleep, repeat. Do you know what I mean? So in that regard, you know, you should try and replicate their diet to the best of your ability, what it would naturally be. They come from Central Australia. They are an omnivore, so they do like a good balance of leaves and live foods. You'll typically see some adults in pet shops and rescue centres that have missing limbs or shortened tails. Sometimes this can happen when they are youngsters and they're kept in large groups, and you have a group of baby bearded dragons in a vivarium, and if they're not fed enough food to go around, they focus on motion, the bearded dragons, which is an important thing to remember. Anything that moves, and they'll try and eat it at a young age. And unfortunately, this can sometimes be their brother and sister's toenails and their tail. You know, so it is important to get them eating at a young age. You know, like with people, you know, when we grow, we need a lot of protein to develop our muscle, a lot of calcium to develop our bones. Same with bearded dragons, so they need to be fed live foods that are very high in protein, so crickets, small little crickets, third locusts. You can give them a handful of mealworms from time to time, not all the time, but every so often. And it is so important to get them started on veg at a young age, so things like spring greens, dandelion leaves, carrots, peppers, a bit of fruit as well helps from time to time. But get them started at such a young age, because what happens with bearded dragons, their metabolic rate, their rate of burning off food, it's very fast when they're young, so they need to be fed a lot. And as a result of this, they are fully grown within 12 months. They get to about 5 or 6 and their metabolism plummets, and they're so prone to putting on weight. And I've seen a lot of older bearded dragons that are fat and saggy and grotesquely obese really. And if you carry on feeding them live foods that are high in protein, high in carbohydrates like your mealworms, Morio worms, then they are at risk of heart attacks. And I'll just put Duck down there. Off he goes. So that's why it's important to get them eating veg, because obviously it contains all the vitamins and the minerals to sustain the body at an older age, to make sure that that weight is healthy, well, basically. Because the thing is with beardies is that, you know, it's so tempting just to give them the mealworms and the Morios, because they will take them. You know, I've never met a bearded dragon that won't eat mealworms. know, but they can be a bit fussy with the veg. I find a good technique sometimes is to mix some mealworms in the veg dish when they're younger, and obviously if they see that movement in the greens, then they'll go for it, and they will remember, once they've got a taste of that veg, they will remember that it is food. You know, so, and a lot of people ask, what about water, you know, like, do they not need a water dish, that type of thing. I've tried water dishes in the vivariums, and bottom line is that they'll just run through it, you know, and they'll run through the water dish, they'll get sand everywhere, and it's just messy, do you know what I mean? Give them a bath every week, a good long 10-minute soak, they'll absorb the water into their pores, keep them hydrated that way. This is a desert animal after all, that is used to a place where it's very hot, there's very little water. They have evolved to retain fluids inside their body, and a lot of their fluids they'll get from their veg, and they'll get them from the crickets and locusts, because don't forget, a body is made up of water, whether it be a human body or an insect, it is still made up of water, so they will be extracting fluids from their food as well, you know. So I think I might have covered everything there that I wanted to say, but ultimately with bearded dragons, start them off on live foods at a young age and get them started on those greens at a young age as well, then they know what they are as they get older. You know, start them off like that at a young age, and then as they progress and they get older, you want to tone down the live foods and make sure that they're eating the veg more, you know. I find what has worked really well for me is using feeding rotors. So like Monday you can have like sort of 4 black crickets with calcium powder, and then Tuesday you can have cabbage leaves with Moriolos. Wednesday you can have green leaves with grated carrot, you know. And what's good about this is that you'll budget yourself as well, so you're not, you know, needlessly spending large quantities of money when you don't need to. And as well, I believe that these guys also anticipate what they're being fed as well, because they do show basic ability to recognise patterns and sort of like orders of things, you know, like they understand that they need to bask in the morning, that's an order, do you know what I mean? It's like a pattern, you know, so. But anyway, I think I've waffled on a little bit in this video, but again, this is something I have such passion for, is bearded dragon nutrition. You know, it's something that I think the reptile industry needs to highlight better. As more casual pet owners keep these guys, they need to be kept right and fed the right things. So I'll just leave you with Caroline, who looks like she's yeah, off she goes. One fight. I do a dope. Big rope. We appreciate the support as always on the YouTube channel. Keep the views up, guys, keep the subscriptions coming in. I'll keep making the videos, it's as simple as that. See you later, guys.